Crochet a Christmas tree decoration with me. Hi there, I'm Cilla from Cilla Crochets, and I'm here to cheer you on throughout your crochet journey, no matter what stage you're at. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this Christmas tree ornament. This is day 1 of the 12 Days of Christmas Crochet-Along. Check that description below for all the links that you need, including the free written crochet pattern on my blog, as well as timestamps so you can skip to any part of this video that you need when you need it. If you are making this little Christmas tree decoration, be sure to share your photos on social media and tag me at Cilla Crochets. I'd really love to see your makes. Alright, let's get into the tutorial and let me show you what materials you'll need.
To make the Christmas tree ornament, you will need some DK yarn. I am using 2 colours today. I'm using this Rickarumi spray DK. I thought this would look really nice and wintry, a little bit snowy, along with the Rickarumi Lame DK, which is a very sparkly yarn to work with. I have seen people add this to a normal working DK yarn, but I've also, I've used it by itself on the edging of my original Christmas tree. I wouldn't recommend using the lame for the actual center of any of your ornaments though, because it is quite thin. Now, the original pattern calls for 3 different colors, a blue, a berry, and a gold, as you can see here. However, I'll just be using the 2 colors today, so I'm going to use the spray for the actual Christmas tree itself and the outer edge with the loop at the top. And then I'll be using the lame, the sparkly one, for the streamer at the front and back, so to create that lovely little decoration. You'll also need a crochet hook. I'm using a 2.5mm Clover Amour. However, if you're in the US, you can use hook size C or a 2.75mm. Don't worry too much if you don't have the 2.5mm. The reason I go down in hook size so much is just so you cannot see the stuffing through my stitches. So speaking of stuffing, you will also need a little bit of stuffing if you decide to make it exactly how I have done here. There is a second option where you can skip making both sides of the Christmas tree and you can just have a flat decoration. However, if you do want that 3D effect like I've got here, you will need a little bit of stuffing. You'll also need a tapestry needle, some scissors, a stitch marker to keep track of your stitches, and you can use some pins, sewing pins, if you are joining the 2 sides together, like I'll be showing you today. However, it's not required. I personally find it easier not to use the pins, but some people, you may find it easier to use the pins, so I'll talk about that when we get to that stage, but pins are optional. In this pattern, I'll put the abbreviations we will use on screen. This is a pretty easy pattern overall, so as long as you know how to chain, slip stitch, single crochet, increase, and as an optional bonus, the surface slip stitch, however I will show you how to do that, you will be able to handle this pattern. Most beginners or people with a little bit of crochet experience will be able to crochet this one along with me. But don't worry, I'll be walking you through every step of the way. So let's get started.
Before we go any further, I just wanted to say that if you are enjoying these tutorials, please do subscribe, like, comment, all of those things. It just helps spread this video out further to more crocheters. I really hate asking this, and I'm sure you probably hate hearing it, but it really helps people know that this is going on. So I would really, really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's start making.
Okay, so before we get started with making the first piece, I just wanted to explain that we're actually starting by crocheting from the top here down to the bottom. And what we're doing is we'll be creating 2 flat pieces, so the front and the back, and then we will join them together at the end. So let's crack on and start to do that. We start by creating a slip knot. Then we're going to chain 2. Now we've got 2 chains on our hook. We'll insert our hook into the second chain and single crochet 1. So that is in US terms, single crochet 1. Now that is almost round or row 1 completed. We'll do 1 chain and then turn our work, but we've only got that 1 single crochet there to crochet into next, as you'll see. So let's go on to row 2, which is simply an increase into that 1 single crochet we just did. So that's 2 single crochet into that 1 stitch. Then we're going to chain and turn. Now we're on to row 3. So here we're going to increase twice. So that means 2 single crochet into the first stitch. We're going to do 2 single crochet into that second stitch. Then we will chain and turn again. Okay, so not including the chain, we have 4 stitches there, 4 single crochet that we did. From here, we're going to increase in the first stitch. Then we're going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then in the final stitch of this row, we will do another increase. So that's 2 single crochet into the 1 stitch. Now we'll chain 1 and we will turn. From here we are on to row 5 and we will increase into the next stitch. Then we'll do 4 single crochet and then we'll increase into the last stitch. And to finish our round, we will chain 1 and turn our work. So from here, we will increase, then single crochet 6, and then increase in the last. So we're just adding increases into the ends of each row, essentially. Now where our stitch marker is where the final increase will go. So I'm just going to turn that so I can take it out. So now we'll increase into that final stitch. We chain 1 and turn our work. So for row 7, we're just doing a single crochet, we're single crocheting across, I should say. So that's 1 single crochet in each stitch. So let's go on and do that now. To finish the row, we chain 1 and then turn our work again. So for row 8, we're doing an increase, then 8 single crochet and an increase in our last stitch where the stitch marker is. So we'll start by doing 1 increase. Then we'll do 8 single crochet. So that's 8, and then we want to increase in the last stitch where the stitch marker is. So I will take that out. Then we'll do our increase. 1, 2, then we'll chain 1 and turn our work again. Row 9, we are single crocheting across again. So that's 1 single crochet into each stitch. So now we go on and chain and turn our work, and that is row 9 completed. You should have 12 single crochet stitches at this point in this row, so let's quickly count them. That's 12, I'm happy with that. So before I go on and crochet row 10, I just want to point out where we are on the actual tree. So we're making the front piece, as you know. We've just finished this section, this top bit. So now in this next row, we're actually going to create the step in, so to speak. So, you know, where this little bit is going inwards, so we've got less stitches. So I just wanted to show you that before we go on to row 10, so row 10 makes a little bit more sense for you. So what we're going to do at this point, okay, so now we'll go on and crochet 3 slip stitches, and we want to do these quite loosely, which can be a little bit difficult, but you don't want them hanging off, but you do want them so it's not too hard to crochet into them later on. So that's 1 slip stitch. Now yarn over, pull through, and then just pull through again, a loop on your hook. And that's your 2nd slip stitch. Now the 3rd slip stitch, pull through straight, okay, and so we've done 3 slip stitches there. Now we want to do 6 single crochet, so 1 single crochet into the next 6 stitches. Now we want to leave the last 3 stitches unworked, so we do not crochet into the last 3 here. So just checking, there's 3 left, 1, 2, 3, that's right. And take that stitch marker out because it's not needed anymore. But to finish round 10, or row 10, sorry, like we do with all of the other rows in this piece, we're going to chain 1 and turn. So that is row 10 complete. So we should have 3 slip stitches at the beginning here, and then 6 single crochet, and then 3 unworked stitches at the end. That's after we've turned our work, obviously. On to row 11, we're going to increase in the next stitch. Then we'll do 4 single crochet, and then we'll increase in the next stitch. We'll chain 1 and turn. So that is actually our row 11 completed. So you'll see now we've got this gap here, this gap here, which is essentially what this little bit here is. So the step. So we are crocheting in this direction, and this bit that we've just done is that little step for our tree. Okay, so going on to row 12, we have an increase in the first stitch, then we go on to do 6 single crochet, and then an increase in the last stitch. Chain 1 and turn. Now we're going on to row 13, which is increase, then 8 single crochet, and then increase in the final stitch. Chain 1 and turn. Then we're going to do an increase, 10 single crochet, increase, chain 1, turn. Now at this point you should have 14 single crochets and then your chain as well. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's correct. For row 15, we are just going to single crochet across. So that is 1 single crochet in each stitch. So let's go on and do that now. Alright, now we chain 1 and turn, and now we are up to row 16 where we increase, then do 12 single crochet and then increase in the last stitch. So let's go on and do that now. Chain 1 and turn. Now for the easy row, we're just going to single crochet across again, so that should be 16 single crochet. We then chain 1 and turn, so let's crack on and do that now. Chain 1 and turn. Now we're up to row 18 where we increase, single crochet 14 in the middle, increase in the last stitch, we chain 1 and turn. So let's go on and do that. We chain 1 and we turn. At this point, after row 18 is complete, we are now up to doing this bit. So in row 19, we will make the stitches shorter again to do our last little bit of the tree. So like we did before, we will be slip stitching to start with and doing those as loosely as you can without them looking too strange. So we'll do 5 slip stitches to start with. Five. So that is 5 slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we go on and do 8 single crochet. Now at this point we want to stop and just check that we've got 5 unworked stitches at the end. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 where our stitch marker is in, which I will take it out. And that is correct because we basically are matching those slip stitches on the other side. Chain 1 and turn our work, and we'll just be crocheting into the single crochets that we've done. Moving on to row 20, we're going to increase, then we'll do 6 single crochet, and then we'll increase in the last stitch. Okay, and now we'll chain 1 and turn. In row 21, we'll increase in the first stitch, then do 8 single crochet, increase in the last stitch, chain 1, then turn. Then row 22 is increase, then 10 single crochet across, and then increase in the last stitch. Now for row 23, we increase, do 12 single crochet in the middle, and then increase at the end. So we'll go on and do that. Then we will chain 1 and turn our work. Let's just check our stitch count here. So we've got a chain, then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 stitches. That's great. Now we'll move on to row 24. Again, same kind of pattern. We're doing an increase in this first stitch, then 14 single crochet across, increase in the last stitch, chain 1 and turn. Now in row 25, we're going to single crochet across. So that is 18 single crochet in total. We'll then chain 1 and turn. We go on to row 26, which is increase 16 single crochet, increase, chain 1 and turn. Now at this point we should have 20 single crochet stitches, and in row 27 we are going to single crochet across, so that is 1 single crochet into each of the 20 stitches that we've got there. So let's go on and do that. and we chain 1 and turn. So going on to row 28, we're going to increase in the first stitch, then do 18 single crochet across and do an increase in that last stitch there. An increase, then we chain 1, turn, and finally we're onto our last row, row 29, and all we do for this row is we single crochet across. So it should be 22 single crochet stitches in total. Let's do that now. "21, and the final one, 22. There we go. Okay, so now we've done our first shape. We need to finish this off by cutting the yarn tail. You don't need to cut it long, just long enough to tie it off, really. So we're going to fasten off just by pulling through like that, and that does a nice little knot on the end. And that is our first Christmas tree shape. Now we're going to make 2 of these. So all the timestamps are in the description below. What you want to do is you want to go back and repeat this process to make a second one of these. That is if you want to make it 3D with a little bit of stuffing in between, like I will be doing in this pattern. Alternatively, you can skip the stuffing and just have a flat shape. So either way, head to the description below and the timestamps for what you want to do are all there. But if you are following along with me fully to make this 3D decoration, go ahead and repeat making a second Christmas tree. Then meet me back here and we'll continue making this Christmas tree ornament. Here are the 2 flat pieces that you'll need to complete the Christmas tree decoration. Now we're going to do some fun bits and we're going to do some embellishment or create tinsel on the Christmas tree. I'm going to use this Lame Rickarumi yarn. All the materials I'm using, by the way, are in the description below as well, just in case you want to use similar materials to me, but obviously it's not required. These are great scrap yarn projects. So for the tinsel, firstly, the reason we're creating 2 shapes is so we can put them together like this, and then we'll crochet around them. So keeping that in mind, make sure you have the side that you want facing outwards, that you see, facing you at the moment. So you're not creating decorations or the tinsel on the inside of the piece. We want it to be seen. So I'm happy with these sides facing outwards. So I'm going to cut some of this tinsel off. So there is lots of ways you can create embellishments on the Christmas tree. What I'm going to do is a surface slip stitch. So I'm going to do it on both pieces and I'm going to do it so it kind of looks like it's joining. Hopefully you can see that there. So to do this, I'm going to first create a slip knot in my yarn. There we go. And I don't want to pull it too tight because I'm going to pull that up. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So I'm going to first start from the corner. Just like, let me put this here so you can see. So I'm going to basically roughly start from here, go up like that, copying what I've done here basically. I used roughly 40 surface slip stitches, but there isn't an exact science to this. This is just meant to be decoration. As an alternative, you don't have to do the surface slip stitch. You could just do some nice little embroidery on the tree. You know, you could even sew on buttons or sew on some decorative items to the front of the tree. There's so many different things you could do with this to make it your own. But I will show you what I've done with my original pattern, which is the surface slip stitch. So let's crack on. After creating the slip knot in your yarn that you are using to do the decorative bit, we then find where we want to start the slip stitch, which is going to be here. I'm going to stick my hook into there and then pull up this loop that I've just created with the slip stitch. Then I'm going to pull on the working yarn to make that a little bit tighter. And then all I'm going to do, insert my hook into the next bit where I want it to go. As I said, there's no exact science to this. I'm then grabbing onto the working yarn and pulling it up through the stitch. And then I'm just doing a slip stitch. So I'm just pulling that straight into the loop on my hook. So let's do that again. So I'm going to insert my hook wherever I want it to go. Let's say I'm going to try and keep it in a bit of a diagonal. So I'm going to insert my hook there, grab onto the working yarn. Now there's 2 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to pull through that loop on my hook to create that surface slip stitch. Hopefully you can see those. So working grey on grey, it is quite hard to see, or silver on silver. And then you just keep going with that until you get to your desired location. Now, I have actually finished with the embellishment, but it is so hard to see. Hopefully you can see that there. I quite like it because it just makes the tree that little bit shimmery. You can see that sparkle coming through, but it is very subtle, and that's just because of the colours I've chosen. As you can see, it looks quite different, quite obvious on this one in comparison to this one. But now I'm going to cut the yarn and just fasten off. Now, as a option, as I said, you could do some more embellishments. You could embroider, you could sew little buttons or something like that onto it. There's lots of ways you can make this quite cute and uniquely yours. But now I'm going to do the exact same on this side, but I'm going to try and match it up. This is just personal preference, something I've got in the written pattern that I'm going to try and replicate here today. So keeping in mind that this is the way I'm going to sew them together. So I'm just quickly having a look. So I've got my bottom one here. So I want to start on the opposite side. Oh, that's the back. There we go. On the opposite side to where I started. So they join up.
So I won't take you through the entire surface slip stitch process again. I'll just meet you back here when both pieces have been finished with their embellishments. I'll see you soon.
That's our 2 pieces embellished now. Now we want to join them together and sew around the outside. So to do that, you can sew in your ends now. I'm a bit lazy and I'm not going to sew in my ends until the very end. But it is completely up to you. If you find it easier to work with your ends sewn in at this point, do that now. Otherwise, you can do what I'm going to do, and that is try and hide my ends inside the piece as we crochet around, and then just sew in any loose ends, because all of these ends all have knots in them already. So there shouldn't be any issues of them coming undone. Now I am going to use the same yarn to sew around my edges and create the loop. You may choose to use a different yarn. Just as a reminder, the original pattern for the Christmas tree has 3 different colours. You've got the colour for the tree, the colour for the tinsel, then a separate yarn for the outside. I've seen some really fantastic makes of this made in like multicolours or gingerbread cookie colours or Christmas cake colours. There's lots of different versions that you could do. So be creative with it. Choose what you like to do, However, I am going to use this same color. To start with, the whole point of this is to crochet the pieces together. So make sure you have the right side facing out before you begin. The second tip is wherever we start and join this yarn to on the edge will be where we create our loop, the hanging loop. Let me show you. So this, the loop for our Christmas tree. So I like starting in the top, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. So to try and make it a bit easier to see, I'm going to put these yarn strands inside the tree. Make sure it's lined up nicely as it can be. Now we'll insert our hook into the top stitch of the tree. So there, your hook should be in both pieces and the piece should be aligned. And then we're going to use the yarn that we want to edge the Christmas tree, and we're just going to pull that through. All right, so to attach the yarn, all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through, and that's us attached the yarn. Now we're going to single crochet around all of these edges, doing a chain stitch as well when we get to a corner, just to create that little corner. Start here, we'll go in to the next stitch, pull up our working yarn through both sides, making sure you are crocheting into both sides, both pieces of the Christmas tree. So there's two Christmas trees we're crocheting together. It's our first single crochet. Now, I don't want you to be too pedantic, worrying too much about stitch counts here. However, it is roughly one single crochet into each row of stitches. So you don't want them spread out too thin. Going to do one more single crochet right in that corner, and then I'm going to do a chain stitch, and then I'll continue crocheting these two bits together at the bottom. We've actually got the nice single crochets lining up nicely in that bottom bit. Makes it a bit easier to figure out where to do your stitches. Then we're going to start going on the side again here. If you're looking for exact stitch counts because you feel quite nervous doing this, be sure to head to the description below, because I do have detailed wording for these steps in the written pattern, which you'll find for free on my website or in the PDF that you can get in my online shops. So now we're up to the corner. I'm going to do a final corner stitch, then do a chain before going into those bottom stitches here. So I'll fast forward this next bit and I'll meet you back at the next corner. At this point, because we've done our last stitch in the side, we want to chain one, and then we're going to make sure these bottom stitches are lined up properly, because they'll have the same number of single crochets, and we're just going to crochet them together along the bottom. It's a lot easier than working into the side stitches. So when you reach the corner at the bottom, you want to chain one, insert your hook into that first single crochet stitch at the bottom of the tree. You'll see, thankfully, all of these bottom ones are single crochets, so they should line up perfectly, and that's what you want to be careful of, to try and make them line up as you're crocheting along, because that's what's going to keep your trees even as we're crocheting them together. Now I'll meet you back at the next corner. Alright, now we've got this last corner stitch at the bottom. Once we've done that, that is quite a good time. I'm going to pull that out a little bit. It's quite a good time to stuff your piece. So I'm going to put those yarn tails into the tree, and I'm going to get a little bit of stuffing at this time. You really do not need much. I think I've used quite a lot for this particular one, but I'm not going to use as much for this one. Just a little bit to give it a little bit of something extra. Now I've got some stuffing in there to keep us going. I'm going to continue to stuff as we crochet around, so we can try and get to some of these maybe harder to reach places. So I'm going to continue and crochet along this side of the Christmas tree, stopping partway through to stuff. I encourage you to do the same, and then come and meet me back here once you reach the top of the Christmas tree, just before the stitch where you started from, and we'll do the loop of the ornament together. Alright, I'll see you soon. Now when we get to the top of the tree, we are simply going to create the loop. And to do that, so to do the loop, we are going to chain 20. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Then we're going to single crochet into the exact same stitch where we started chaining from, where that single crochet was. So but the idea is now we want to slip stitch to that first single crochet we created at the very beginning. There we go. We want to cut the yarn, not really leaving too much for sewing. Fasten it off. Now, if you're anything like me, a little bit of a perfectionist, I don't like how that bit isn't pointed. And that is simply just because the loop happens to be at a point. So what I'm going to do is use this yarn strand to fasten the 2 chains at the very bottom of the loop together, so it looks more like a Christmas tree. So using your tapestry needle, thread the yarn tail onto there. And now all we're going to do is insert the needle into the bottom of the loop, the 2 chains at the bottom of the loop like that. Then we'll pull them together. I'm just going to do that again. So just wrap around and go through the same stitch again, and that will bring it together into a nice point. There we go. And now all we need to do is fasten off this tail. So all I'm going to do that is weave it in the back. And then I'm going to insert it into the tree, pull it back up through any other stitch. There we go. Pull that yarn tail through, and then very carefully snip that yarn tail off. Pull it tight and snip it as close as possible to the Christmas tree without cutting the Christmas tree. And there we have it. Our lovely little Christmas tree decoration.
And it's as easy as that. I hope you've enjoyed crocheting your Christmas tree ornament. I would really love to see your makes, so please do post pictures on social media and tag me at Cilla Crochets. I really can't wait to see the colours you've chosen and what decorations you've added. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more videos like this. Until next time, happy crocheting!